So push it. Push reset.
China used to be like this, what I'm showing you with all these photos. You have apple, we have orange, we have pear, and we have whatever that is, the flat first one on the left-hand side. You have McDonald's, KFC, we have KFG, and the McDonald Arch with one more. We have your opera house in China too, and together with the Eiffel Tower. Yes, we used to copy so much. Don't get me wrong, we still have a lot of people in China copying. But I think in the last few years, I have seen with great joy that there are young generation who are coming up with really original innovation that I think in many fields are leading the world. But before I show you some of those cases, I also wanted to sort of tell the story of the changes that China has gone through. And that's why you understood why we have the innovation that we're seeing today. So if you look at the economic development of China, we actually went through 4 stages. The first one was back in the 70s. That was when we only just recovered from the Cultural Revolution, which was from 1966 to 1976, that 10 years. So we just recovered, and it was planned economy. Then 1986, the mid-80s was the time when the first private enterprise in China was ever established. And a lot of big names company that you're familiar with or you have heard of today, Huawei, Haier, Hisense, Lenovo, they were all established back in the 80s. So that was at the beginning of entrepreneurship, the beginning of the China's own innovation thinking. But unfortunately, Tiananmen Square happened in 1989. It just brought the country backwards for at least another 10 years. So 1997, that was when the new sort of leadership took over. They decided to move from planned economy to market economy, and that's when the China's GDP started to kick off, and then until the recent. So actually, that whole innovation journey, it took China much longer than it took other countries, but we're eventually there. So that's the change to the economy in China. But there's some changes in the society that are driving all this innovation as well in China. There are 3 that I have seen many research and reports, and I've seen from how consumers are talking about them. The first one is the one-child policy. It actually, believe it or not, it drove that social media innovation in China. The second one is the railway system, the infrastructure the government spent a lot of money in the last 2 decades building. It actually pushed the mobile innovation. The third one is new wealth. We have probably the most billionaires and millionaires in the world in China. So that new generation of wealthy people who just don't have the patience to wait for marketeers, to take your time to do market research, to test the market, to find the physical distribution. They want your product, they wanted it yesterday. So it's that generation, that whole population, they're really driving that e-commerce innovation in China. So let me just go into a little bit of each of those 3. The one-child generation. The one-child policy was put in place or introduced in 1979. So we have more than half of the population now in China that actually grew up being the only child in the family. Now, when you're the only child in the family, you wanted that extended sibling. You have your cousins, you have your classmates, you have your neighbors, but that's not enough. So when QQ was first introduced by Tencent close to 20 years ago now, it only took QQ 2 years to hit that first 100 million users in China. Now, 20 years later, the same parent company, Tencent, launched another social network called WeChat. It took WeChat even quicker. It took WeChat less than a year to hit that 100 million users. And you want to guess how many years it took Facebook, a true global social network, to hit that same number? It actually took Facebook much longer. It took Facebook 4 years. So Chinese, because that one-child policy, that whole lonely generation, we have a thing called lonely marketing or loneliness marketing. I think that only worked in China because we grew up being so lonely in the family. So social media is godsend to these one-child. They wanted to extend, and they were fascinating when people living in, he or she may be from Chengdu, out in the Middle West, But someone who lived in Beijing who actually responded to whatever I have to say or the breakfast I show on my social network account. So that just fascinated the general Chinese. So if you're marketeers and you are a global business, you do have an operation in China. Whatever you do, whether you're running a business, you're doing marketing campaign, you're just you're doing CRM, you have to have that social element. You have to have that social power in China in order to be seen, to be heard, and have that influence. Social is very important in China. Doing business in China, if you can't do mobile only, I beg you to do mobile first. Don't even think about PC because that is no longer relevant to the Chinese consumers. You need to have a very strong, very compelling mobile offering to the Chinese consumers, mobile and plus social. And the third societal change is the new wealth. Like I said, we have the most billionaires and millionaires in the world, and they wanted their products yesterday. And in the last 15 years, I have seen so many marketeers, especially international marketeers, who just would not let go of the traditional approach of expanding markets in China. So they all wanted to send their researchers or research agency go out and talk to the consumer, research the market, take a look at all the statistics, and then take a look at the local distribution networks and find a distributor, and then pick a location to put up their physical stores. And then when they do advertising, they're like, well, my distribution does not cover this city, so I shouldn't advertise. My advertising should not cover that city. That may work in other places in the world, but it does not work in China. Because these many people who've got their money and they made their wealth and they wanted to buy yesterday. And guess what? E-commerce can send or can deliver products to every corner, any corner in China. I think the logistics service provider in China is probably the most competitive in the world because we have people living in really inner mountain, village in the mountain. So our logistics vehicles range from big lorries that you also have here to little, donkeys carrying the products up to the mountain village. But they get that product, and okay, it may take longer, but they will get that product. So when they have money, they want it, yesterday. I know a lot of people compare Alibaba and Amazon. They're actually two very different models. Amazon is a closed model where Amazon from head to toe control internally by Amazon. But Alibaba, when Jack Ma started Alibaba about 15, 17 years ago now, decided to make it open. That's just build a platform where anyone can come onto Alibaba and open a store themselves. And let's keep it open so anyone who has logistic capability come onto the platform and offer logistics service to people, for merchants who want to have goods to sell to people. And let's build a convenient payment gateway so the consumers can pay easily online. Because if we're relying on our traditional banks in China to be innovative, I think we can still be looking at paying with cash now in China, right? So they came up with that payment gateway. So it is that open system that Jack Ma insisted when he launched Alibaba. That actually, because it's open, so anyone can come on here and then create added value services to merchants and to consumer. So Alibaba actually, I believe their e-commerce was the pioneer driving a lot of e-commerce innovation, not only in China, but in the world. I believe they're the first e-commerce platform that have introduced instant messaging as customer service. So when I browse through stuff on Alibaba's e-commerce, Taobao.com, I can talk to the customer service real time through instant messaging little window that open up on my screen. And I can do that on my phone as well. And the banking system is very backwards in China, not innovative. So they're like, well, let's do our own payment system. So they came up with Alipay. So it's very easy to use. So as long as you have one bank card, bundle it with that account, then you can do online payment. And they also understood that you worry that your money will be paid to the merchant before you receive the goods. So the money that you pay to Alibaba actually stays in Alibaba's bank account. before your goods, you receive the goods, and you have to come back to the platform and hit confirm that you're happy with the goods. Then Alibaba will pay the money to the merchants. Now just imagine the interest that Alibaba is earning on our money. Okay, I think that's pretty innovative too. And it's total transparency as well. When I say transparency, I didn't have time to show you that many slides, but if you have ever gone on to Taobao.com, when you shop on Taobao.com, for every store and every product that you have popping up on your mobile phone screen or your desktop, you can clearly see how many, what's the total number of units that this product was sold this month. And if you want to go back and trace last few months, you can do that as well. And you have all the customers who have purchased this product, all their reviews. You can also check the license of the merchant behind these goods. That they have to have proper government approved documentation to prove. So they have to upload those documents. So all these informations are very transparent to shoppers. So you can make an informed decision, if you like, with all the information that you have on Taobao. I'm also a big shopper on Amazon, but I don't find that much information that's so transparent to me as a shopper. And they also have store management assistants. This is this assistance to help merchants who have never done e-commerce storefront before. So they will help the mama pop-up stores. They can come on to Taobao.com to help to open their store. So they have assistants to help those merchants. And they have storefront design modules. So if you don't have creative and you're a little shop owners, you don't have money to hire creative people to help to design your storefront, they have modules that you can select. They have free ones, and then when you make some money, you can go and buy more sophisticated ones, not that expensive. So they came up with that solution. And like I said, the payment gateway, Alipay, is now more than just being used on Alibaba's e-commerce platform. But we use Alipay to pay for utility bills, to pay for my Starbucks coffee, here and there, pay for my taxi, and even little fruit kiosks near my apartment, I can pay with Alipay as well. So it's actually pretty much everywhere. So that's the kind of innovation that, because it's an open system that Alibaba has introduced. So that's that. I think it's also because that new wealth population, they're giving a lot of demands out there and say, I have money, I want to buy, so you can come and pitch my money, right? And then you have the platform to do so. And also not long ago, the central government, President Xi, also came out and said, we need to encourage startups. And we encourage startup by not just talking about it, but also for the government put in KPI for every local city government. Now, it used to be GDP growth, but now every local city government is no longer GDP, but it is whether you have put in place a startup incubation infrastructure or solutions or offerings. So every city in China, city government has their own startup fund. They can also go out there and invest in startup. And government, they have their own land, so they can put up co-working space like WeWork. They actually work with WeWork to put together a co-working space and rent it either for free or very cheaply to start up. And they also have tax incentive. That's probably the least they can do to give incentive to young people to start the company. So it's really that, we have change in the economy and also the change in the society, and now we have endorsement by the central government. So China now, if you live in China for some time, you will actually see this is a very dynamic market, no longer just because it's a big marketing market, but it's also a very big startup market. It's also a very big innovation. So the startup and the big corporate, in the big corporate, I think a lot of people envy you in the big corporate that you have so much resource. But I know when I was at WPP, I know a lot of those resources a lot of times are wasted. You actually are not taking advantage or maximizing the resource that you have in your corporate. And your corporate name is a great entry ticket. I remember when I still have the WPP China CEO title. I get to, I have people cold calling, wanted to meet, and if I write to, whatever platform, they will meet me. And so that's a great entry ticket that you hold in your hands. So don't just have eyes and ears for the big companies, but also trying to pay some attention to the smaller guys who are doing something interesting. And if they've heard that, wow, Unilever wanted to come and visit, you don't have to say much. Just your corporate name will get you that ticket, and then they will just welcome with open arms. And big corporate is one large machine, and no matter what happened, the machine continued to churn. And it's that mentality sometimes really grew inertia, if you like, and I have seen that happen in not just WPP, but also in my clients' corporates, and also that assembly line mentality. Because it's a big corporate, so a lot of jobs are being broken down into pieces. So I'm responsible for this piece of this whole big assembly line. So I've only had limited skills. I just wanted to pay attention to this. I don't care about what happened elsewhere in the assembly line. That mentality is also killing that innovation. Bureaucracy and silos. Very slow turnaround times, because for every decision, it can't be made just by one person in the big corporate. It has to be made by a group of people. So you all have a lot of metrics, right, in your organization, but nobody is actually being held accountable for that final decision maker. So you ended up having a lot of meetings and discussions, but still haven't come to any decisions or conclusion. Eyes and ears for a big company. I think that's very common for a big corporate. So if you have like a conference, you wanted to invite big platform, which is natural. You wanted to hear what the big platforms are doing because it had direct impact to your marketing. But also try to have scouts out there discovering what the little guys are doing. I think oftentimes they're doing a lot more interesting thing than the big corporate. Just look at Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I think they have probably sexier products on the crowdfunding platform than a lot of what the big corporates are offering. For small startup, it's that survival mentality that keep them alive, I think. They're much hungrier than big corporate for business. Speedy turnaround time, but they do have limited resource. But also that also means they maximize the limited resource they have. Like in my company, every one of us, there are 12 of us, but every one of us have about 5 jobs. So that's the kind of mentality that you're seeing very common in startup. Multitasking for everybody, like I said, it's a flat organization, quick turnaround and quick decision making. It's very result driven because in startup you don't have results today, you don't have tomorrow. And it's that problem solving innovation. So we're not just really being innovative for the sake of being innovative. We want to be innovative because we have a challenge that we need to address. So I was asked to talk about how big corporates can embrace innovation. But I also wanted to ask the question, what worked for startups really wouldn't work for big corporate? Because I know that there's in a lot of conferences I spoke at, people say, oh, I wish we will start up. I wish we can build a startup culture. But do you really, you think that startups are successful only because they have something unique to start up? I came across a great TED talk by a very successful VC. He invested in hundreds and hundreds of companies. So he also was curious, what are the critical factors that sort of drove those success for those startups? So he surveyed among his, not survey, but he looked at performances of all the startups or the portfolio companies that he invested. He also looked at non-portfolio companies out there in the open, successful companies, failing companies. This is what he had come up with, the conclusion. The first critical success factor is timing. And the second one is team. The third one is idea. So idea was not the first one. The idea is ranked as the third. Then business model. Then funding actually is the last. So you don't need a lot of money to come up with innovation, to make innovation work.